Hello and welcome to It's Only Electric. Today I am actually south of Germany, south of Munich to be more exact, on a press event and a release event for the newly released Nio EL6. This is the mid-size SUV from Nio that measures 4.85 meters and has a wheelbase of 2.9 meters, curb weight 2,250 kilograms. So it's a fairly big mid-size SUV, and it sits just in between the BMW iX3 and the BMW iX, just so you get an understanding. It's also 10 centimeters longer than the Tesla Model Y, so it's a fairly big mid-size SUV. The EL6 comes in 10 different colors. This is called Airspace Blue, and it's one out of 3 different blue colors, sits just in the middle. Great looking color, equipped with 21-inch wheels with carbon fiber inlays to lower the drag coefficient and make it more aerodynamic. So this is running on the big battery pack with a gross capacity of 100 kilowatt hours and a net capacity of 95 kilowatt hours. NMC battery pack as usual. You can also get it with a smaller battery pack of 75 kilowatt hours with a net capacity of 70. The big battery pack has a WLTP range of up to 539 kilometers, does 0 to 100 in 4.5 seconds, and has a top speed of 200 kilometers per hour. It has the exact same powertrain as the Nio ET5, the sedan and touring version, with a bigger motor at the back delivering up to 210 kilowatts of peak power, a permanent magnet motor, and a smaller motor at the front delivering 150 kilowatts. So combined 360 kilowatts of peak power, 490 horsepower, 700 newton meters of torque. It carries the same design DNA as the other cars in the lineup, with the headlights split into 2 parts. The parts here above is the daylight running lights. Underneath here I have the actual headlight unit, and at the rear we have the signature LED bar going through the whole back end of the car. And when it comes to the sides, the flush window design is also available on this car. So let's look at the charging specification, and here we have some good news. The same as in the touring of the ET5, it can charge in up to 180 kilowatts. It has a very flat charge curve, which means that it can charge in a high speed around 174 and 182 kilowatts of charging, between 5 or 6% all the way up to 72%, around that ballpark, which means that you can charge the car very fast and in a short amount of time compared to the older versions. But this only goes for the big battery pack of 100 kilowatt hours. The smaller pack of 75 still has the same charging capabilities as the current one. So let's look at some practical aspects. It's possible to add a roof rack with a load capacity of 75 kilograms. And when it comes to the boot, powered liftgate, and when you look at the boot this way, with the floor mounted, 579 liters. If you remove these things and count in all the areas underneath here, it's up to 668 liters of total boot space. It's possible to add a tow hitch with a tow capacity of up to 1.2 tons. Foldable seats split into 3 parts, 40, 20, 40, really practical. It's also possible to adjust the rear seat angle with up to 8 degrees. It's time for the mandatory backseat test, and as always I'm sitting behind myself, meaning that the front seat is adjusted after my driving position, and I'm, by the way, 193 centimeters tall, or 6'3", just so you know. I'm fairly tall but still have a lot of room here. So let's start with the leg room, and as you see, plenty of space. Same thing goes for my feet. The seat sits fairly high up, so there's no problem whatsoever. A lot of space for your feet here. Seating position feels like the back bench is a bit deeper. I think it's 53 centimeters. It doesn't give me enough amount of thigh support, but it still feels like a good back seat, probably as good as it can get in this class of a car. So the backrest is adjustable, so you can recline it up to 8 degrees. So now it's in the most reclined position. So if you straighten it up, you gain some extra room in the boot, but that's a very straight sitting position. It almost feels like you're sitting totally straight, 90 degrees. When it comes to headrest and headroom, there's plenty of room here. As you see, 3 fingers when I sit very straight and a bit leaning towards the door, because this part is lower than the glass roof part. If I measure the glass roof part, I'll almost have 2 fists, or at least 1.5 fists of headroom. And another good aspect is the headrests. They are fairly cushioned and soft, and also adjustable height-wise, so only in X-axis, not in Y-axis. But the good thing is that they are actually poking out a fair amount. So that means that you don't need to lean your head that much to be able to get the support from the headrest. So very good headrests for being a back seat. A good thing is that it has a big panoramic sunroof divided into 2 parts. The frontal part is actually openable. So it's an openable panoramic sunroof. And you can't dim it as you can in the ET5 Touring. But one good thing is that you have a curtain. So with this curtain, you can close the whole panoramic roof to spare you from cold or hot weather. Other convenient features, this car has the Comfort package. There's also a Comfort Plus package. The Comfort pack adds seated heat to the back. The Comfort Plus package also adds the massage function and cooled seats. Not available on this specific car though. A nice feature is the control screen of 6.5 inch here at the back, where you can control things like media, ventilation, seat heating, etc. Underneath that one, you have one USB-C port delivering up to 60 watts of power. That's good. The interior color combination is called Warm Gravel and Black Headliner. The headliner has black Alcantara, nice touch that one. Fake leather, leatherette inlays at the top, soft touch, also at the midsection. So the same material choices as in the front. This is the warm gravel color. I don't know, it doesn't look like gravel to me, but still a comfortable and nice light color, lifting up the cabin and the feeling in the cabin a bit. So good material choices, at least at the top half part of the door. When it comes to the lower part, there is some harder plastics. A smart design feature that makes the car feel a bit more premium is the fabric they have used to cover the speakers. It not only covers the speaker itself, it also covers the whole lower part of the door, which makes the door feels a bit more premium than just using hard plastics. In total, a great back seat with a lot of room for your knees, for your feet and for your head, even if you are a grown-up. So you can easily travel 2 or 3 grown-ups at the back seat. If you've seen my other Nio reviews, there's a lot to recognize here. Let's start with the steering wheel. Looks exactly the same as in the Nio ET5 and in the bigger brother, the EL7, with 2 big controls on the sides. The right side is for media control and the left side is to control the autonomous driving functions. Conveniently placed, really easy to use, no haptic buttons, real touch and travel into those. One IR camera for monitoring the driver and the driver aid systems. So in front of the steering wheel, a horizontally aligned 10.2 inch instrument cluster. In front of that, good news, the EL6 has a head-up display also. So a instrument cluster plus the head-up display. Here at the center, 12.4 inch central media screen placed conveniently. So this is also running the Banyan 200. Banyan is Nio's 2nd generation of media software, and it has really evolved to the better when comparing it to the older versions. Same layout and same look as in the other Nio cars. Some slight updates here on the floating central dash. The drive mode selector has gone through a slight update. So the indicators of the gears is from now on integrated into the lever. So you see here it lights up D and reverse. Parking button still at the same place. Otherwise the same look and feel to the gear selector. To the right there is also a slight update. In the earlier models there was 3 big buttons. Now the buttons are actually smaller and more sophisticated and has the same color scheme as the rest of the car. Looks a bit more classy. In the center console you have a QI charger with a total output of 40 watts. So we can charge it fairly fast actually, so that's good. 2 adaptive cup holders. And further below the cup holders, you have a central compartment and an armrest, openable from both sides, with two USB-C ports, one USB-A and one USB-C. This one is fairly deep, so you have some extra space for storing things. The main space though is underneath here. Here you have a lot of space and also a 12-volt outlet for powering your stuff. There is no glove box in this car. Nio doesn't work with glove boxes. Another update is the new generation of Nio seats launched in the EL6, and they are actually better, to be honest. They feel a lot better than the seats in the ET5 in several ways. First way is that they feel more comfortable. The second thing is that you have a better neckrest. The headrest is now adjustable in two ways, x-axis and y-axis, so you can adjust the height and also pull it out. So a lot more convenient and also a lot more cushioned and soft than in the ET5. So when it comes to the interior in general, Nio is using premium materials most of the time, especially at the dashboard. So in this case, a multi-layer dashboard with the leatherette at the top, a bit darker. Speakers covered in fabrics. The midsection is covered in Caroon, kind of a rattan material. That's also hiding the ambient lighting and also the ventilation. So digital ventilation adjustable on the screen. Underneath, the leather inlays continues, and then you have this light inlays continuing down all the way, same materials. This one is a bit harder than on the sides. The lower parts are hard plastics. The same goes for the doors as in the back seat. For me, it resembles and gives me the Scandinavian feeling and thinking when it comes to design. It's not overcomplicated. It's tidy. It looks good. Not too many different material choices. All in all, a good packaged interior. I won't have the same amount of time that I usually have with the press cars I borrow, but I will try to do my best to cover as much as possible for you guys. Now it's time to take a tour and drive for a couple of hours, and I will try to express the driving dynamics, the suspension, the acceleration, the feel of the steering wheel in the best possible way for you. Let's go. I have been driving the car for a couple of hours now. Now I'm actually on the German Autobahn, and as a Swede, I don't know how to drive on Autobahns, so I currently drive in a speed of 120 kilometers. That's probably way too slow, but it feels good. And a very surprising thing, or a thing that I didn't expect, is that this car is very far from the experience I had with the Nio ET5 and ET5 Touring. It's an SUV first off, for a starter, so it's a higher car. The driving dynamics is a lot different. The ET5 is a lot more sporty and lower to the ground. No surprise at that point. But this one is also a lot more silent. I mean, despite driving on the 21-inch wheels, as this one does with 265 all around Pirelli P0 tires, it's still a silent car. And double pane acoustic glass windows both in the front and at the back makes the car silent, and it's a lot more silent than my Tesla Model Y Performance that I have with the 21-inch wheels. It's also more silent than the ET5, the smaller sibling to this one. So it's a more premium feeling in this car, and there is a big difference though when it comes to the suspension. I thought this car was going to be equipped with the traditional steel springs and normal dampers as the ET5, but it isn't. It actually has active dampers. Almost gives me the same floaty feeling as the dual chamber air suspension on the EL7 and ET7. So, I mean, that's good. It's a really comfortable ride. And for the moment, I'm actually driving it in the drive mode called Custom. And my favorite setting for Custom is to set the acceleration to 5.9 seconds. That's the second lowest or second quickest mode. The regenerative braking to standard. There's 3 levels, very low, low, standard. So standard is the highest level of regeneration. At least that's the setting I prefer. When it comes to the suspension, there's also 3 modes: soft, standard, and stiff. And even if you set it to stiff, I mean, it's not stiff. It's stiffer, but it's not stiff. The soft is a bit too soft for my liking. It gives me a bit too boaty feeling, if you know what I mean. So stiff is the mode I drive in. So maybe on longer trips, I would use standard. And when it comes to the steering, same thing there. Comfort, standard, and steady. Always steady, because steady is not steady as in my Model Y. Steady is more normal. When you set the steering wheel to the comfort mode, you can actually steer with your little finger. So it's a bit too easy for me. The last setting is the climate control, and you have two modes, Eco and Standard. Currently, I'm driving it at Standard to see how much the car consumes in normal conditions. Otherwise, when it comes to the dry modes, it's like all Nios. You have a lot of dry modes. So to start with, you have the comfort mode, Eco mode, Sport, and Sport Plus. On top of that, you have the customization mode. On top of the dry modes, you also have additional scenario assistant modes called snow mode, wet mode, sand mode, and hill descent control mode. And the snow mode is actually developed on behalf of the Norwegian customers. So as you know, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, maybe not Denmark, but Norway, Sweden, and Finland has a lot of snow. So a snow mode is a really good addition to be able to feel safer and drive safer during winter time in harsh conditions, when it snows, when it's icy, etc. So a good thing with that is that it seems like the software and the team at Nio is actually evolving, and it's also evolving on requests from the market. Even if the market is small, for instance, the Norwegian market, I mean, it's 4 or 5 million as a population. So that's still good compared to the Chinese population. And it's good that they add modes, they add things to the software that are actually convenient for the Scandinavian and for European markets. So whilst talking about the European market, this is a car primarily adapted and developed for the European market. This is the second generation of the EL6. It's called ES6 in China, actually. And there is a lot of updates to mention between the generations. As a European and as a Scandinavian, a Swede, it's very important to have the practical aspects. The foldable seats, the tow hitch, the snow mode, the big boot. So there's a lot of things adapted specifically or added specifically for the European market. And that's good to see, that they actually adapt and don't release cars that's not for the European market. I mean, that strategy isn't gonna work anyway. Just look at the ET7. That car is not made for the European market. No one, that's a bit harsh, but very few people in Sweden want a big sedan with non-foldable seats, for instance, and a small boot. We want to see the practical aspects. The Europeans, especially the Scandinavians, want a utility car that they can use in all conditions, with your family, without your family, on long trips, on short trips, shopping, going to IKEA, for instance, buying big boxes. That's very important for us, and it will be, because it's very expensive to hire people driving things home to you. It feels like this is the sweet spot when it comes to suspension, at least when you look at the alternatives you have at Nio. I mean, the ET5 with the entry-level suspension, the static suspension with traditional dampers and steel coils, compared to top trims with the dual chamber air suspension that you find in the ET7 and EL7. This rides the best. This is the best of those two worlds. You still get a bit more of a feeling when you drive the car, but you still have a lot of comfort. Maybe a bit too much comfort, if that's possible. I don't know. For some people, it's not. But I tend to like the driving dynamics of a car. I tend to like driving the car a bit more inspiring. I have been getting a lot of questions regarding the beeping sounds in the Nio cars, and that seems to be a general thing for Asian-made cars. There's a lot of beeping settings and beeping warnings depending on the equipment on the car. First thing I always do when I jump into a Nio car is to turn off the chimes. There's 4 main settings for that you need to turn off. if you get annoyed by the chimes and beeps. First one is the distraction alert and the drowsiness alert. You find them under the menu driving and parking. The second part is the driver assist alerts. All the way down you have two settings. One is called overspeed alert and the second one is speed limitation notification. And that's actually two settings that turns on every time you jump into the car again. And that's due to EU regulations. So the function of those chimes is that every time the speed limit changes, it notifies you with a beep. And every time you drive like 1 or 2 kilometers too fast for 2 seconds, it chimes. And that gets really annoying. So my recommendation, turn these 4 features off and you will have a lot more of a pleasant drive in your car. But as soon as you turn on Nio Pilot, some notifications will occur. And I think you can live with that. I mean, now I have been driving on Nio Pilot for a while and you haven't heard any chimes, have you? So it's not that distracting. So you can actually turn off most of the chimes, and that's good. Another thing that I want to talk about is the new seats. And as I said in the beginning of the video, this is the second generation or new generation of seats. Until now, the best seats I have tried in a Nio. Not the best seats I have ever tried, but in a Nio. So better than the EL7. What I miss though is a button for extending the thigh support, because it has extendable thigh support, but there is no physical button for it. You need to do it on the screen. For all the other settings, like the lumbar support, the adjustment of the position, there is buttons for it. I mean, okay, you may not change the thigh support that often, but still, I would have wanted to have it on the same place. So another thing that I need to complain about when it comes to the seats is the lack of side bolsters, side support, and that goes for both parts, the seating part and for your back. It doesn't keep you in the seat. It doesn't support your back for more engaging driving. I want it to be a bit more cushioned, a bit more side bolstering. So the average consumption after 2.5 hours of driving is 19.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer. That's more or less what you can expect, and that's in line with the other cars I've tested from Nio. Not the most energy efficient cars, but this is a big car and it has a big battery pack, so the calculation gives us a total range of 485 kilometers in these conditions. So 20 degrees outside currently, totally dry roads, and I'm driving mixed cycles. So I guess the average speed is fairly low, around 85 or 90 maybe. So I expect some higher consumption at autobahns and higher speeds. And there is a shortcut for activating the Sport Plus mode, and that's pressing the 2 buttons most to the sides on the steering wheel. That immediately activates the Sport Plus, and when you press them again, it deactivates and falls back to the drive mode you used before you activated the Sport Plus. Sport Plus active. And it's time for some more inspiring driving. All the 360 kilowatts of power is active and available. The suspension is set to stiff, the steering wheel is set to steady. So this is the sportiest setting and the sportiest feeling you can get with this car. And you feel that this is a heavy car, and you also feel that it is a big car. It's not only heavy, it's big. And you feel that when you push it a little bit more. Now driving to a small Dorf. Dorf means small society in German. Now we are exiting S-Baum, the name of the Dorf. S-Baum is a great place. Really good place. Let's push it. So it's plenty of power, and what I like is that the smaller motor at the front is not overstated. It's not overstating the feeling in the drivetrain. So you still feel that it is a bit more rear-wheel drive biased, but the stronger motor at the back pushes you like a rear-wheel drive car and then adds power to the front wheels without disturbing the driving dynamics. But I'm still very impressed by the silence of the cabin and the sophistication of the suspension. It's to the softer side, even when it's set to stiff. I would have preferred a bit stiffer mode. Uber stiff, maybe. That's an idea for you guys, Nio. Please add uber stiff to the suspension, because it's still leaning a bit too much in the corners, a bit too much of a side roll. I mean, it's an SUV, it's heavy, it's high, but still could have been a bit stiffer. And when it comes to the steering and the feeling of the steering wheel, it's still a bit numb. And that goes for all Nio cars, especially the ones with the air suspension. So this is a bit more engaging than the ES6 or EL6 and the ET7, but not as engaging as the ET5, obviously. So one thing that enhances the driving dynamics and the pleasure of driving the car is the well-balanced chassis. The weight distribution is actually 50-50. So it's even Steven, 50 at the back, 50 at the front. Makes the car behave very steadily. So even if you push it, you don't lose the control. It behaves well, and it behaves as you want it to behave and as expected. But I wouldn't call it a driving machine. It's not as engaging as the ET5 Touring or the ET5 in general. But for being a SUV, I think it's still a fun car to drive. It's not as engaging as the Tesla Model Y. That car has a sportier, a harsher, both steering, but especially suspension, that gives and enhances the driving dynamics and the driving fun and experience of that car. This is not on that level when it comes to sportiness, but when it comes to comfort, it's nowhere near the Tesla Model Y. The comfort in this one is above and beyond compared to a Model Y. That also goes for the interior quality and the materials. I generally don't complain about the interiors in my Model Y. I think they have been evolving good, and that materials, the soft touch materials, are good. And it's, I think it's quality in some way. But this is a very narrow street. Didn't expect that. I'm actually passing a very narrow opening here. This was a nice place. So this is south of Germany. Really amazing. I'm gonna pass another narrow place. Let's do that. This is a really picturesque and nice place. This is a place I want to stay at least for a couple of nights, discovering the area, maybe hiring a bike, cycling around. Nice. Okay, let's continue. Just want to remind you that I have done a lot of videos regarding Nio. So if you're interested in the Nio ET5 Touring, for instance, also a brand new car on the market, I will put the link up here for you so you can watch it later, also at the end of this video. I haven't talked about the sound system. The EL6 does have the same setup as in the ET5. So it's running a 7.2.2 sound system with 23 different speakers and 1000 watts of output. Now it's chiming at me. I need to turn off the speed limit notification and the overspeed alert, because that's not livable. I can't stand that setting. Okay, let's continue. Sound system. So how is the sound? Sounds like a powerful setup and a good setup. And I must say that the sound is, in some aspects, really good. In others, not that good. So when it comes to the highs and mids, really crisp and powerful sound, clear and dynamic. But when it comes to the lower frequencies, the bass, it lacks a bit of a bass. I'm actually missing a more powerful subwoofer. I looked at the subwoofer in the boot. It's a bit small, and I really don't feel the punch of the subwoofer. Even if I crank up the levels of bass to maximum, it still lacks bass. So that's it. Good sound system, powerful sound system with 3D surround, DTS support, etc., but lacks a bit of a bass. So I just wanted to make a brief stop because I just passed this beautiful place, just in the middle of nowhere. Look at this, the mountains. What do you think? Beautiful, huh? So this is Bayern. You see the Alps, the mountains, all the lakes surrounding this area, and the EL6. Nice view, huh? So that was just me sharing this moment with you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's continue driving. So when it comes to the software, decent navigation. You get it in full screen, layers on layers, so we have widgets available for controlling the music and seeing the status of the car. A pretty decent system currently. It has been evolving. It's a lot better now than when I tested the Nio for the first time. So this is the Banyan 2.0 system, 200, the latest release. And that's a big update since it's a full number. They've also added applications. For instance, they have added support, a native app for Spotify. So not only Tidal anymore, they're also going to add a video platform or a streaming platform for movie content with content from Disney Plus and Amazon Prime. That's also good, even if the screen is not a perfect screen for watching movies. Another good example of evolving software is that the navigation now includes point of interests, and not only point of interests as such, it's using the information and pictures and ratings from Google. That's a lot of information and it's very helpful. What I wanted to say with this is that the software department at Nio doesn't seem to sit on their hands. The operating system is evolving. They are releasing new functions. It's looking better. They are releasing applications. So they are working with the operating system and the software as such. And that's always fun to see, because companies that doesn't work with the software, that's dead companies. They won't survive. You need to evolve. You need to evolve your system. Always evolve your system. So I have been talking a lot. It's a lot to say, and I have a very short amount of time to express as much feelings and facts as possible. So I may miss parts of it, and I beforehand apologize for that. And I hope that this gives you a really good information about the EL6. And if you have questions about the EL6, please post them in the comments below. So what's your top pick in the segment? Do you think the Nio EL6 will be able to sell some decent volumes and take market shares from other brands? Let me know in the comments below. When it comes to the price and the pricing strategy, I mean, you can totally subscribe to the car, and you can choose between two variants, the 75 kilowatt hours pack without the comfort package and a 100k pack with all the equipment you can get. The other thing is that you can buy the car as you do with most other brands, including the battery pack. On top of that, you can also buy the car but not the battery pack. That means that you lease the battery pack, and you can choose if you want to lease the 75 pack or the 100 pack. That makes it a bit complicated for taking decisions for the consumers, I think. So whilst talking about the pricing strategy and model, the base price of the EL6 in Sweden is 639,000 Swedish crowns. That's without the battery pack. In Germany, 55,000 euros starting price, also without the battery pack. So if you go for the whole package and want to buy the battery pack and own the battery pack yourself, the big battery pack, it will cost you 75,000 euros or 870,000 Swedish crowns. That's a bit more expensive than the entry-level price without the battery pack. The alternative, if you want to pay less up front, you can go for the BAS alternative, which means that you can lease the battery pack. BAS stands for Battery as a Service, like software as a service, but at this moment it's a battery. You lease the battery pack and you pay a monthly fee for that. I think it's around 300 euros or 3,000 Swedish crowns per month for leasing the big battery pack. That also includes a couple of free swaps. I think it's 2 swaps a month, and currently the swapping is still free for all cars with the battery lease package, with the BAS package. You will be able to swap batteries as many times as you want currently, and I think that's until the year end. The prices for swapping is not released yet, and if I understood Nio right, they will communicate actual prices for swapping the battery pack, and there will probably be kind of a flat fee for the swapping itself, and on top of that you pay for the actual delta between the empty battery you swap out and the new battery you get into the car. But according to Nio, this will be a favorable price for the Nio owners, so hopefully we will know more in a couple of weeks. So Nio is doing a lot of different and cool stuff. I mean, the power swap stations, that's a really, I wouldn't call it unique. In Europe it is unique, and it's currently the only swap station network available. Even if it's only 27 stations, power swap stations currently, it's a growing network, and there is big plans for that one the upcoming years. But there's other things like Nio houses, Nio spaces. That's like lounges you have access to as a Nio owner. Then you're like a member of the club. So it's kind of a lifestyle owning a Nio. That's at least the feeling they're working and trying to expand here in Europe. It's a lifestyle. They have Nio life products like rucksacks, bags, shirts with Nio logos. Great design, and nothing wrong with that. I don't think that's necessary, at least not in Europe. I mean, I don't think the main USP would be to visit or hang out at a Nio house as a owner. I mean, sometimes maybe you need to stop, take a short break, then it's good. But me at least, I wouldn't be that interested in like visiting or hanging around in a Nio house to talk with other Nio owners. Maybe a couple of times, but that's not my lifestyle. I don't have that time. I'm too busy for hanging around at Nio houses. And I think that goes for most of the people on the European market. I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think that some parts of the Nio ecosystem will disappear. I think so. I think it's more than enough to create good cars. Good looking, well working, high quality cars. I think that's enough. I don't think they need to do anything more than that. But that's just my 2 cents. What do you think? Do you think all these things around the Nio houses and the lifestyle thing makes sense for you as an owner or for you as a potential owner? Would you utilize that thinking and that ecosystem or lifestyle? Let me know in the comments below, because I'm really interested and I really want to hear your aspect on this. This is going to be the most important car for Nio on the European market. It is also going to be the car that sells in the biggest volumes compared to the other models. And I really don't understand how they from now on will be able to sell the EL7, because I don't see any reason at all, not even a bit of a reason to buy the EL7 over this one. It's more expensive, it's a bit longer, but doesn't have a bigger boot. The back seat seems to be around the same amount of space. Okay, that one is stronger, more powerful and quicker. For me, that doesn't matter, because this one has more than enough power with its 490 horsepower, 0 to 100 in 4.5 seconds. It's more than enough when it comes to power and performance. And when it comes to comfort, I mean, the EL7 has the dual chamber air suspension. That suspension is not on par with the best air suspensions on the market, but it's still a decent suspension, but it gives you kind of a numb driving feeling. And to be honest, I really prefer the suspension of this car. It still feels a bit numb. I mean, the steering wheel is a bit artificial. The suspension is sometimes a bit too stressful in the vertical movement. Feels like it's working too much sometimes. Maybe that's some adjustments needed for the active dampers or for the software. I don't know. So this one is a lot cheaper, but still feels as premium as the EL7. And compared to other alternatives on the market, the riding comfort and the convenient features like soft closing doors, both in the front and the back, double paned, acoustic glass, active dampers, all that power. This is a hard package to beat. So this is my initial review of the Nio EL6. And I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did that, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Really important for me to be able to grow and create more content like this, travel to Munich, testing new cars, etc. You know the drill. Thumbs up, subscribe, and as I always say, stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.